with anything in life, it will test your commitment, your confidence, and your ability to be flexible and to remain flexible in the market. And so we have an instance uh, of resistance, right? So let's look for an opportunity from support. And so this is a consolidated area. So you would want to wait in this instance because this whole area is consolidated. It hasn't really given you a strong indication of it going in a direction. We can use this area here as a better understanding of when the market is making an upward move. So you have the market falling down to this level, right? And then it kind of created a little bit of a zone in there. Yet we had a candle that broke out. And so the breakout candle would have been our entry signal. And then our entry candle would have been this candle that was the next day. Can you see that one? Now, granted, the better that you get with timing your entries, you could have gotten in this area, right? You could have gotten in down here. You may have gotten in like right here. That would have afforded you more pips, which is great. However, if you wanted to wait on a clean signal, then this candle here, the breakout candle, would have been the best bet to say, okay, now the market is ready to go, and then your entry is there and you're taking it up. Let's look for another example. Okay, same thing here. So with the market, you see where we didn't have a strong quote unquote signal. We didn't have a strong engulfing candle. We had some kind of candle action in here. It wasn't really giving you a strong, say, like doji or something that was obvious. So we got a indecision candle here, and then we got a nice bearish engulfing candle. It completely obliterated that candle. And so that would have been your entry signal, and then this would have been your entry candle for you to just take this market all the way down. And you can see how, if you learn to time your entries on support and resistance, you will have opportunities that really open up pips to your account, right? It really exposes you to getting the most pips in your account. So if you need to watch this video again, that's fine. Give me 1 second. We're going to switch back to the other screen. So yes, essentially we just want to ensure that just to recap, that our entries are for support and resistance are being based on pivot points in the market, right? Pivot points in the market. So we're waiting on the market to fall to support and give us a reason to buy, and we're waiting on the market to rise to resistance to give us a reason to sell. So we're basing our entry on a pivot point, right? Because if you saw that previously back over here, over here in this, well, that's not what I wanted. Yeah, here we go. So just back over here, this market had been like this, and then finally down here it hit support. Now it's back in the same area, right? And so we were waiting on it to get there so that we can go ahead and execute a sell. So make sure you watch this video over so that you can get more information about looking at the entry signal. So getting a buy signal at support, and then preferably your entry candle the next day would continue that trend or that bias. It would give you a buying indication, and then on a sell day or a sell signal, your entry candle is the next candle, considering it continuing in the same direction. All right, so we will also have a entry video for supply and demand. Alright guys, so welcome to this training. So in this training we're going to look at entries for supply and demand, right? We looked over entries for support and resistance. Now, one of the major things to understand is that with support and resistance entries, we said that we are basing those off of pivot points. And alternatively, with supply and demand entries, these are quote unquote the entry within the trend, right? So these are points or zones in the market that show either continuation or a retest of sorts, where the market has created a zone, a level of supply, a level of demand, and has come back to that area to see if that is a valid supply zone or a demand zone. So these are, with support and resistance, it's oftentimes where it's sort of based on a price, right? The zone here, or the supply and demand, is based on an actual zone. If you haven't seen the supply and demand video, make sure you watch that. However, we're going to go over the entries and give you a little refresher on the supply and demand as well. So on your screen, you will see the market making an uptrend, right? And we have a a pullback, in a sense, where the market created a demand zone. And you ask yourself, okay, well, how do I know that this is a demand zone? One of the main indications is that the candle following made a higher, whoa, my bad, made a higher high, right? Made a higher high, and the market was, in a sense, going up. And so we have this zone that is created. And if we're drawing our zones, we know that a demand zone would be created from the price open to the lowest point, right? And so that would be our active demand zone. And what we're simply waiting on is price to revisit this zone to give us a reason to participate in this move. Okay, and so when we're looking at the structure of what we have on the screen, and we're just going to be focusing on this side of it, right? So when we're looking at this, we are saying, okay, this market has been going up, and I would like to participate in this market. And just going back to the psychology behind the demand zones and the supply zones, is that we are wanting to participate, specifically with the demand zone. We are wanting to participate in a upwards trend. However, we're going to wait for the prices to be discounted again, right? We're going to wait for the wholesale price so that we can participate in that market. And so what you have is the market made a higher high. After it created this demand zone, the market continued up for a couple of days here, and then the price came back to the zone and tested that zone, and then the price continued up. And so alternatively, with entries for supply and demand, when we are entering with demand zones and supply zones versus support and resistance, the candle that we're entering on is moving, and it's touching the zone. In this instance, we have a candle that is moving into a demand zone, right? And at one point, we could say that this candle perhaps looked like this. And a lot of times, it didn't look like that. That's not the best. All right, so it looks like this at one point during the day. And sometimes it seems a little counterintuitive to buy on such a bearish day, right? A lot of traders are like, oh no, I don't want to hit buy there. And that's where, if we understand that the zone is a strong zone, that gives us more confidence in knowing, yeah, this is a great opportunity to buy because the prices are revisiting this zone, right? Now, to qualify these zones optimally, your entry your buying would occur on the first touch of the zone. That is when the price is the most ripe, I'll say. If the demand zone has been touched multiple times, we find that it's not as significant of a zone. It's more so a an area where the market is just bouncing around, versus an area where the market showed us that prices were low and prices shot up and came back to just to test. Hey, we had them on sale last week, right? We had the price on sale last week. Is that a good area? Okay, yeah, it's still a good area, so we're going to go up. And so building the confidence to execute a buy during a demand zone or a sell during a supply zone, it may take some time and some practice. Okay, so definitely, until you become comfortable with identifying these zones, definitely practice this on demo. Now, alternatively, with support and resistance, we're riding the market from support to resistance, from resistance to support. And so with demand zones and supply zones, we are looking to buy when the price is lowest or at wholesale, and then we're looking to take it until we get an area of a supply zone or a touch of a resistance. And all of these are tools that can make you more well-rounded, so that you know, okay, if I want to participate in a trending market, or if I want to participate in a continuation, I might need to look for demand zones and supply zones, right? Versus if I want to capture the overall move, then I'm looking to enter from support and resistance, and then within that, it's going to create demand zones and supply zones, right? So as far as the entry goes, we are looking for the first touch of the zone. Okay, and so for that reason, this candle would be your entry candle. All right, so this is technically your signal that it created a zone. The reason that this is your signal is because it was confirmed by a higher high. Okay, so let's not forget that part. This was confirmed by a higher high, so we know that there is some sort of demand in this area. The market continued up, broke down, came back to that area, and this was the first touch of the demand zone, and so we executed a buy here. And so you can either decide to take this to the next supply zone, or alternatively, you could take it to a level of resistance. And then again, I mean, the optimal opportunity is that all of this profit is essentially what you can bank, right? Now, looking at a supply zone, we have the reverse, right? We have the market in a downtrend of sorts, and created a level or zone here. The market made a lower low, right? A lower low. So this is our indication that there is some sort of supply in this area, and then this candle here confirmed it with making a lower low versus that candle, this candle, and then we have a touch of the supply zone, which we know if it's a supply zone, we're looking at the open to the high. Right, on the demand zone, we were looking at the open to the lowest point. So on the supply zone, we are looking at the open to the high. Okay, so because of that, our entry would be on the first touch. And I drew this with a little bit of just real market examples, where you will get in at the first touch, and then it'll dance around, and then eventually it will fall, right? Knowing that this candle, when you got in, looked a little like this, right? Could be, for some, it could be a little like, oh, I don't know if I should get in here. And so understanding when you have strong levels of supply or strong levels of demand, the best entries come with that first touch, because you're able to minimize your risk and get in as in this instance as high as possible, right? So that you can be protected in a sense by this zone. Okay, so what we're going to do now is just hop over to the charts. I'm going to show you two different examples of this, and not only that, but a recent example of using a supply zone to execute a trade. Okay, and here we are in the GBP NZD on the daily chart, and just keeping in mind, echoing what was mentioned in the support and resistance video as far as entries go, the higher the time frame, the more powerful these zones. And typically with supply and demand zones, if you can find one, if you can find a supply zone on the weekly, or if you can find a demand zone on the weekly, or a supply zone on the daily, a demand zone on the daily, the higher the time frame, the better opportunity it lies for you to be able to get the most profits, right? And so we have here an area of a supply, and we see the market has made a downward move. We have our lower low, right? And then you have the market coming back up to this area to test it, right? And so this would be where you execute your sell. Keep in mind, the market could have during this day looked a little like, let's say it was like this, right? Probably look like that, and I'm gonna just kind of take the bottom out so we don't get confused. All right, so it probably looked a little bit like that, right, during the day. And so having the confidence to say, hey, the market just painted a zone, a supply zone, I'm gonna take this sell confidently. You can see here where the past few days it had been going down, and so executing a sell right here is optimal. Now, what's interesting is that you did get another opportunity to get in here in this supply zone, and you could have taken that. However, we know that the best entry is on that first touch, right? And because of that, what we find here as well is on this day, this candle would have been like this, right? It would have been super bullish. And in a downtrend, we are looking to sell when prices are too high, or when prices go to retail, right? And so this would have been an opportunity as well to get in. However, our best opportunity was right here, right? So this actually is a good opportunity as well. But yeah, let's see if we can find a demand zone. I think we highlighted one. Let me zoom out here. Yep, here we go. All right, so on this chart here, we have the market create a demand zone, right? And so we have that confirmed by the market making this higher high, and we see it going up, and then eventually it came back to give us a signal on this zone, and it didn't quite touch the zone. However, with spread and all of that, if you would have gotten in on this candle, most likely your entry would have been around here because of the way that the market was down here, right? And then you could have bought right there and then continued to take that market up. And so that is, we'll get into more complex zones in this second supply and demand training. However, that is the basics of entering, right? So let's go back to the other screen. And so just revisiting this, right? So with our entries as it relates to supply and demand, we recognize that it's based on the zone. Not only is it based on the zone, we are essentially looking for demand zones when the market is going up, right, on a higher time frame. So if we're trading on the daily and the weekly is trending up, then we're looking for demand zones. Well, yeah, if we're trading, I think I said that backwards. If we're trading on the daily and the weekly is going up, yeah, that was correct. So on the daily, you're looking for demand zones, right? If you're trading on the daily and the weekly is going down, then you are looking for supply zones, right? That is the summation of it. And so Should you be looking for supply zones in a upwards trend? No. Should you be looking for demand zones in a downtrend? No, right? Um, Understanding the psychology behind it is that the demand zone has created a discounted price. The supply zone has created a retail price. So we want to sell when the price is the highest and buy when the price is discounted. So on our screen here, we have a demand zone that was created and verified by this candle here that shows the higher high, and uh, on the flip side, we have a supply zone that was created by this confirmation of a candle that was a lower low. And so demand zone, the first touch, our entry would have been here. Supply zone, the first touch of the supply zone, our entry would have been here. All right, so there you have it. We have the entries training for support and resistance, and the supply and demand zones. And just to recap, support and resistance, we're looking for these major pivot points to capture the entire move. And with supply and demand, we are looking to time our entry so that we are able to participate in the overall move. If the overall move on the weekly chart is bullish, then on our daily chart, if that's the one that we're entering on, we are looking for the market to create a demand zone so that we can buy when the price is the lowest. And alternatively, for supply zones, we're looking at, is the overall market bearish? Okay. Yeah, if the overall market is bearish, then I'm only looking for supply zones. And so if the weekly is bearish and on the daily there is a fresh supply zone, then that is a zone that I would want to execute a trade so that I can participate in the bearish move. And then, of course, alternatively, with support and resistance, we are looking to take price from these levels. So from support to resistance, from resistance to support. Typically these are pivot points, and your entry is based on closed confirmation candles or closed price action candles to give you the best entries. All right, so you've watched the entries training. If you need to watch it again, just continue to practice and look for these areas. And as homework, I would recommend going in your charts, plotting on support and resistance, and then doing a deep dive and zooming in to see if you can find the supply and demand zones within those overall movements, right? And so that way you can hone your skills and looking for these opportunities so that you can time your entries and get the benefit of the entire move or a continuation of the entire move so that you're not getting faked out. All right, so take care and have a good day.